I call it a financial coup. I think what happened was when the budget deal busted in 1995, they gave up on the government. They just said, this form of government will not work as a governance structure to manage the dollar system.
They're right about that.
And they just felt it was impossible. If you're a risk manager, you got to turn the aircraft carrier before you hit the iceberg. And that could be 20 years before. Do you know what I mean? And they just felt that the system wasn't working. And it required, to get consensus, you just had to dumb people down and buy them off. And it just wasn't working. So I think they decided, okay, we're going to re-engineer government on the just do it method. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull all the money out. We're going to put the government in a debt trap, and then we'll squeeze it and shift to the control model. And it was a financial coup, and it started in fiscal 1998. So it started literally October 1st, 1997. By 2015, they had 21 we had reports in their financials of 21 trillion of undocumentable adjustments. From a cash standpoint, it could be 50 trillion or 10 trillion. There's no way to tell unless you can get access to the bank records. And then what happened was Dr. Mark Skidmore of Michigan State University and I published a study, sort of a survey we had done thanks to him and his students, that announced that we were up to the 21 trillion. At that point, then the next step that happened, remember the Kavanaugh hearings?
Very well.
Okay. What you don't remember is during the Kavanaugh hearings, the White House, the Senate, the House, Republican and Democrat, all of them together, issued an administrative policy called Federal Accounting Standards Advisory Board Statement 56.
Yeah, I did miss that. I'll just say.
You did miss that.
Yeah, I was busy watching Kavanaugh yell about his teenage drinking or whatever.
Right. And what that policy said is, as a matter of administrative policy, we do not have to obey the constitutional provisions related to financial budgeting and disclosure. We do not have to obey the laws, and we do not have to obey the regulations. What we can do is appoint a secret group of people by a secret process to move money out of the financial disclosures of the United States and 150, so it's the 24 covered agencies plus approximately 150 governmental entities. And when you throw in the classification laws and the national security laws, it also applies to the big banks and contractors working for the U.S. government. Now, let me explain what this means as a matter of investment. When I look at the U.S. large cap stock market or the U.S. bond market, the Treasury market, I have no financial disclosure that has any meaning. Everything's secret. I have no idea what it means. If I pick up the financials of a New York Fed member bank that is running the U.S. Treasury Department's bank accounts, or if I pick up the Treasury financial statements, they're meaningless. They don't mean anything.
What's missing?
You can't know. All you can know is a secret group of people can make whatever they want go missing, and you can't know what it is. It's all secret. So I'm looking at half the cake, but I don't know what part of the cake is missing. So it's meaningless.
You don't even know if it is half.
Right. I don't. It has reached a level of absurdity where. But the absurd thing is, as a legal matter, to take the position that an administrative policy agreed upon by the uniparty can overrule the Constitution, can overrule the laws, and can overrule the regulations simply by, you wave the wand and suddenly magically law doesn't matter. I mean, now you're talking, and you also saw this in the financial crisis. A decision was made by Eric Holder in the Department of Justice to not prosecute HSBC. There's a wonderful video on the Best Evidence channel by John Titus about this whole thing. And basically what they said is a systemically important this is under the BIS. There's a definition under the BIS, under the Financial Stability Board, of a financially systemically important institution.
Right.
These institutions are free to break the law with they're free to break the law. At most, all they have to do is kick back a piece of the profits to the Department of Justice. So it's like a formal kickback system. And what you're saying is that you're taking the sovereign immunity of the BIS and through the New York Fed, extending it to the banks that are running these operations.
Like JP Morgan and the rest, Bank of America. Yeah.
Right. So what you've done with the BIS, the IMF, the World Bank, the UN, you've created all these different organizations. And if you look at, we did like 40 in Latin America, you've created an international overlay of organizations that have various forms of sovereign immunity. Of course, the big one being the BIS. And so if they are free to break the law, I mean, if you look at the financial crisis, what you're saying is these companies can lose trillions of dollars, have it replaced by the taxpayer, and keep on going.
So now is the point of the conversation where I have to ask the obvious question, which is, who are these people? So can you name some of the people who you believe are making these decisions, whose decisions are effectively, as you just said, above the law, have effective immunity?
Right. So that's the question, sort of, who is Mr. Global?
Yeah.
And my experience is the bureaucracy that sort of runs things is the central banking bureaucracy. So we've described the BIS and the central bankers. So think of the planet as a house. So you have the house, then you have financing the house, that's the mortgage. Then you have the insurance, and if you don't have the insurance, then you have the equity in the house, right? And the insurance layer is very, very important to make sure that the equity is protected, right? Okay. So you got the real assets, you've got the banking system, you've got the insurance system, and then you've got the owners. So in my experience, if you go to the BIS and you look at the systemically important institutions and the members, that's the bureaucracy that runs the debt and the transaction system. So the transactions, because the whole thing depends on being able to swap and transact. The insurance group is very important for the reasons you just described, same as on your house. And then the question is, who are the real owners? And that's the mystery. And I've spent my whole life trying to figure out who are the real owners. And basically, from what experience I've had, if you know their name, they're not one of the important owners. Do you know what I mean? It's intergenerational pools of capital. Now, here's what's interesting. One of the most powerful pools of intergenerational capital that I've ever dealt with is the Harvard Endowment.
We're always looking for cool companies that make products that make you feel better, and that's how we ran into Bon Charge. Bon Charge offers a wide range of products that improve your physical condition, help you sleep better, perform better, and center your mind. Recover faster, maintain energy, etc., etc. They make blue light glasses, red light therapy, a lot of different products like this. And they help you address the trials of modern life effortlessly and naturally. Now, one of the things they make is a sauna. We could go on and be boring about sauna, take one every single day. Bon Charge makes a sleek infrared sauna blanket. It's got a similar effect to a Finnish sauna, but without the intense heat. It's an easy and comfortable 30-minute session you can enjoy while relaxing with your family, talking to people, reading, and it leaves you feeling refreshed and slightly euphoric, but in a good, healthy way. It's a great addition to your wellness routine. You may even drop a few pounds doing it. Bon Charge ships worldwide. Bon Charge, whether it's BONCHARGE, offers free shipping and allows for easy returns and exchanges. So go to boncharge.com/Tucker. Use the coupon code Tucker to save 15%.
And if you look at the squabble going on over who controls the Harvard Endowment right now, it's a very interesting squabble.
Can you summarize it?
Well, you have the Trump administration and the Department of Justice now in a lawsuit with Harvard over who has what powers over Harvard's policies. But I think the big fight is not in asymmetrical warfare, the fight is never what the fight's really about. The real fight is about who controls so Harvard Corporation, The university is only a portion of the Harvard Corporation. The Harvard Corporation runs the university and it runs the endowment. Okay. And the Harvard Corporation, in my experience, is one of the most important investment syndicates in the world. And because they have a tax exemption, they don't have to pay taxes. They spin off, I think the last time I looked, I don't know what it is currently, but they spin off about 4% a year for the university, which is a lot cheaper than paying taxes. And it's a great investment because the university provides all sorts of intellectual and human capital to the investment syndicate. So it's a very brilliant, elegant model. And my theory is it was the model that was really created to sort of compete with the Vatican and the Catholics, who had 2,000 years of, diplomatic immunity and no taxes. Anyway, but it is, the Harvard Corporation is run by a perpetuating board. So the board members, if board member leaves, they pick a new board member. So it's a self-perpetuating board. And my guess is behind the scenes, if there's a fight, one of the fight is who gets on that board, because then you control a $50 billion plus endowment. And a $50 billion plus endowment, which now has a 39% private equity portfolio. And these are, I said on Money and Markets, which is our weekly show, I said the other week, if this is a monopoly board, that would be Park Place, because it's such a flagship. In the world of investment, it's such a major leader.
What would happen if the Congress decided the new tax bill to tax university endowments? Which they should do.
I don't know, because that will happen at the same time something else is going to happen. And these things are going to happen at the same time. The thing that's going to rock the universities is if you look at how much money it cost you as a father to put one child through college, you're talking about enormous bills. And if you look at how far the universities have gotten away from providing a great education, it's not a good investment. So when I was an investment advisor, I used to work with my clients' kids, and we would literally do something. We have a learning plan on Solari now that came out of this. I would literally make them price time and money for each course they took, by course. And I would basically make them say, look, what do you want to do in this life, and what are the skills and tools you need to do it? And how are we going to go get those tools with the least amount of your time and the least amount of your parents' money? How are we going to really, and we would come up with these wild education plans where they would go to San Francisco for this audio video course, and then they would be next year in Budapest studying at the university, because you want kids to learn about the world, and you want them to be, not provincial, stuck in.
You want them to be educated.
Yeah, you want them to be educated. Anyway, but we would come up with these very creative things. And what you discover is, in a world of YouTube University and access to extraordinary, resources all around the world to get a great education, the universities in the United States have gotten unbelievably bloated and unbelievably off track.
I think everyone senses that.
Right. And they're a terrible, if you're a loving parent, they're a terrible investment. You love your children. You want your children to be successful. If I want my child to be successful in the world we're going into, whether it turns into a control grid or the control grid, as I believe, will fail, you want them to have an outstanding education. And I will tell you bluntly, the reason the unipolar model failed is because we don't have a culture that can field and manage a unipolar.
That's exactly right.
Right.
We don't have human capital to run the world.
We don't have the human capital, but we're teaching our human capital to adopt a culture that cannot succeed.
Exactly right.
Right.
So if you're going to run the world, you need Eton and Sandhurst to provide an administrative class that's tough, clear thinking, has a well-defined mission.
I don't start
self-sacrificing.
With you need Christianity.
Well, both of those. Certainly Eton was a Christian school.
Right. If you're going to be part of a project that is longer than a lifetime, then you have to understand that this is about, at the root, this is about your immortal soul, and your soul is immortal. And that triggers a very different way of looking at the world and a very different way of thinking. And then you have to be able to collaborate across time and space in very powerful ways. That takes trust and faith. You have to be agreement capable. And you can't run a unipolar model, let alone a successful multipolar model, unless you're agreement capable. So this is Lavrov's term, and this is what the Russians understood, and this is why they whooped our ass in Ukraine. They are agreement capable, and we are not.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.